Nice. Okay. There we go.
But someone want to go ahead,
Yeah.
introduce ourselves.
Okay. Hi, I'm Tasha. It's so nice to meet you. I am not in the heat like Eden. I'm high in the mountains. My site is called San Jerónimo, and it's right at the base of the highest mountain in Costa Rica. So it's pretty fresquito. And yeah, I love it.
Are you, is that, help me out, down near San Miguel? Is that, where are you?
It's like halfway from San Jose to Panama.
Okay.
Like in like the southern, like central southern region.
Okay.
Hmm.
Got it.
Yeah, I'll go next 'cause I'm right next to you. But right now we're in San Jose for a medical visit. That's why we're not. That's why we're here in Starbucks. Um, but I'm Bella. I'm Isabella. I am a SED volunteer, and I am in Catira in the northern region in Alajuela, very close to Rio Celeste.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a beautiful site. Very touristy right now. Yeah, it's growing. Uh-huh. Popcorn it to Nick.
Hello, I'm Nick. My site is San Ramon de Rio Claro down here in the Zona Sur of Costa Rica. So like 30 minutes from the Pacific coast and like 30 minutes north of Panama. And I'm also a SED volunteer. I'll shoot it over to Alec.
Hi there. I hope you can't hear whatever national anthem is playing next to me, but I'm Alec. I'm also a SED volunteer. Like Bella, I work with a tourism project in a place called Mollejones de Turrialba, which is like a village of 200 people, like right on the border of Cartago and Limon in the east. I'll popcorn it to Emily.
Thank you, Alec. I'm also located in Cartago. I'm in Orosi, so it's like a mountain village, a mountain town. And I'm a YD volunteer. I'm the only YD volunteer on this call. So I'm working at a high school and the elementary school. I'm at the elementary school right now, but we don't have electricity, which is why I'm able to hop on this call because yes, I needed Wi-Fi for what I was planning on doing in the morning. So on my computer. But I really, really like it. And majority of my projects are actually centered around recycling and arts and sports. And then I'll pop the corn over to Gary.
Hey, I'm Gary. As you can tell, I'm a little bit older than the rest of the crew. So rather than retire, I joined the Peace Corps. So I love it. I'm in a town called San Ignacio de Costa. I'm about an hour and a half south of San Jose. I'm a SED volunteer, and I'm mainly working with the municipalidad on too many projects. I think I'm in the biggest site of about 10,000 people. So there's more than I can do here, but so far so good. Love it.
Love the hairstyle. So I'm going to date myself. What is said and what is whitey?
I was gonna um yeah, talk a little bit about that. SED is our program, so that's community economic development, and YD is youth development. So there's the three programs in Costa Rica for Peace Corps are those two, and then English education as well. And I think Debbie was on the call, but I think her Wi-Fi has been cutting out a little bit. She's at her school and she's an education volunteer. So she may or may not be hopping in and out of this call. But yeah, that's the current names of the programs, what we're working in. So it's okay, there's one, two, three, six says volunteers, and Emily's the one YD volunteer, and then maybe Debbie's gonna hop on for education representation. But I know a couple people from education were really interested in the recording as well, so they just weren't able to make it.
I'm
And
thinking, I hope Kaylee, my daughter-in-law, can join us, but I know she's got a lot going on right now. Maybe I should just dive in and I'll stop.
she was on for a second, but she just disappeared. I saw
Oh,
her. Oh, there she is. So maybe she's connecting. We'll see.
okay.
She's about to. Or yeah, her name just popped in the participant box. Let's see.
For those of you who don't know, I mean, I literally did finish my Peace Corps service 40 years ago, so I'm a fossil. All of my information's out of date. But my younger son didn't follow my advice and has followed my footsteps. So he was a Peace Corps volunteer in Colombia. He met Kaylee, who's now his wife there. They were both volunteers in Colombia. And I thought it'd be nice to have one of them join us with maybe a more recent, for those of you concerned about, well, what do I do after Peace Corps service? Anything I say is 40 years old. I thought maybe Chris or Kaylee could share some of their more recent experience. Chris, my son, Kaylee, his wife. And of course, if they're not able to connect, I'll tell you my version of their Peace Corps experience, but I'd rather that you get it directly from them.
Yeah, I see Kaylee's on the call now too.
Right?
She's able to connect. Kaylee, I'm not sure if you can unmute.
Sorry,
She is.
I've been trying to hop in and out. Can y'all hear me and or see me?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
is this okay? Perfect. I can see this now. Tell me. I'm back in Colombia, so Wi-Fi's not the best.
Yeah.
It might be here. Let me see if I can if I turn off my video. Can y'all like hear me fine? I'm
Yeah,
just make sure I find a spot in the house that this works at.
Yeah, that's what I technically really have to do a lot of times when I'm on calls here as well. So no worries. Yeah, okay. Well, since we're all here, I see Tom also joined the call. We introduced ourselves to Bill. This is my former professor from university. So I don't know if you want to give a quick introduction about yourself as well, Tom, before we get started. And
Sure.
Debbie.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm a response volunteer working with the Scouts in San Jose, well, in Moravia actually, and I don't know what the topic of your conversation is, but I thought I'd jump in and just hear what y'all are talking about. And
Yeah, of course. Thanks for joining. Debbie, are you able to unmute?
I'll try. I don't know if I'll get disconnected, but hi, my name's Davy. I'm a secondary ed volunteer in Cartago. And
Awesome. All right. Okay, well, we can go ahead and get started. Okay. So I don't know if we want to let Kaylee go ahead and just share a little bit about her experience since she has to head out a little sooner than you. But yeah, I was just wondering, Kaylee, if you could share a little bit about how like your experience in general in Peace Corps Colombia. I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were in the cohort that got evacuated, right, because of the pandemic, right? Okay. I remember like this being mentioned to me a little while ago. So I don't know if you could talk a little bit just about your experience in general, what motivated you to go to Peace Corps Colombia, and yeah, anything else you feel like that could be, worth sharing. Anything's awesome. If she's able to unmute.
I wonder if we've lost her.
She's
The
still on the
audio
call.
for me was a little bit choppy when she was talking earlier.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you want to take it away, Professor Weech.
All right, I'll dive in, and Kaylee's
Sure.
not bashful. She'll have no hesitation
Awesome.
to interrupt me if she's able to come back on. So I guess Eden mentioned that I was her professor at JMU, and so now she's getting her revenge. She gave me this big homework assignment with all these questions I have to answer, and I'm worried I'm going to get graded. But my intention is to try and give really brief answers to these questions and then just kind of see what comments that elicits from you guys and if I could say anything that might actually be useful or interesting. So my first question, why did I join the Peace Corps? Probably real similar to you guys. It was a combination of altruism. I wanted to save the world and self-interest. I thought it would look good on my resume. I was fresh out of undergrad. Asked, what influenced the path after Peace Corps? Well, I'd had international and intercultural interests before I joined the Peace Corps. So Peace Corps didn't spark that, just kind of helped develop it. Where I went from there was influenced in part by those interests and values and a lot of random chance, just random stuff. I don't know, Gary and Tom, I'm guessing you're a little bit closer to my age than some of the other folks, but a lot of people I meet in middle age and older, when you ask them to make sense of their lives retrospectively, they can. It all fits together and makes sense. But very few people, I think, in middle age, in my experience anyhow, and older would say, "Oh yeah, I followed my plan. This is exactly where I thought I would be 30 or 40 years ago." So I don't know. Right after Peace Corps, I went into graduate school because I figured for the kind of work I wanted to do, I'd need a master's degree. I got a master's in international management from a school that doesn't exist anymore. Um, Parenthetically, Chris, my son, and Kaylee, my daughter-in-law, both got master's degrees also at Texas A&M, and they got, I forget the name of it, but the Peace Corps Scholarship. They both got
Riverdale
big
Fellowship.
bucks to do grad school. And let me just finish this thought, and then I'll turn it back over to Kaylee, who's changed her name to Chris. Um, so right out of grad school, I got my dream job. I got a job at a university consulting office that had programs in Costa Rica. They were paying me what I thought was big bucks to travel back to Costa Rica, use my Spanish language, use my Spanish culture. They had hired me because of my Peace Corps experience. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. It all fell apart within 6 months. The office collapsed. They lost funding. I was the last member of the professional staff to resign. And then I ended up with not Plan B, but Plan C. So I'll continue that boring story later. Kaylee, you're back.
I'm back. I logged on to the computer. We have people that are like in here putting stuff up. And anyways, we're fine. It's fine. I apologize for what was the chaos of 10 seconds ago. So sorry, Eden, I like heard the very first word of when you were like, "Hey, Kaylee, can you talk about?" And then it went, meh, and then here I am. So
Yeah, no worries.
apologies.
Yeah, I think I was just asking if I know that you were a part of Peace Corps Colombia and you're an English education volunteer, correct?
Yep.
And you were also in the cohort that got evacuated because of the pandemic, right?
Indeed.
All right. So yeah, I was just wondering if you could just share a little bit about your experience with the time that you did have in Peace Corps and,
Yeah.
just, an overview, what led you to Peace Corps and how was that experience, especially given how it was cut short by something that, you couldn't really control. And yeah, just a little overview.
Yeah, no, and just to make sure that I'm understanding, everyone on here is a PCV. That's
Yes.
the audience.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So
I joined Peace Corps because my freshman year, I went to University of Georgia for undergrad and was having like a whole bunch of conversations about studying abroad. I had never left the country before. And when I left the country, I was in Botswana for the first time and was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, but I'm only here for like 2 months. And that's not a lot of time to actually get a new lens to kind of like see the world through. Like I was a history and poli-sci major, so I was like very interested in like, how do people view things? How do they, make decisions, yada, yada, all that goes along with that. So one of the people that I was on the trip with, also apologies, I am making juice because we have people at the house and it's very rude to not have juice ready. And these people are helping put up paintings. So I'm sure you guys are very familiar with that. I can't imagine that Costa Ricans are people to be like, oh yes, come into my house and I won't offer you anything. So that was like my freshman year of college and essentially like continued to study abroad, did most of it in sub-Saharan Africa and applied to Peace Corps my senior year, assuming that I would get sent to somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa, and then I got sent to Colombia. And so went through like a whole bunch of crazy things. Like I had like med issues because they're like, oh, you have an EpiPen, you can't leave the United States. You're like, actually, that's not true. But anyway, so was a TEFL volunteer. I mean, did 3 months of training in the same way that y'all did. I came in at Noato Alto, so I was like really did not have a very good working level of Spanish, but became very, very close with my host family. So I was like super fortunate to have a really great host family. My host family planned our wedding. So I don't know if Mr. Weech told you this, but Chris and I got married in Colombia. And our like host families planned our wedding, like helped do all of that so that we could like have a wedding that had them at it, which was a blast. Got put in my permanent site in December of 2019. You know how you're supposed to take your first 3 months to, like get situated, don't do like a whole bunch of work, like get to know the community. And so my 3 months were like just coming to an end because in Colombia you have Carnival in February, which means like literally nothing happens, at least on the coast. There's volunteers that are in the center of the country, but the coast nothing happens. So was just starting to get into, like, I was supposed to, do you guys do GLOW? Do you guys do Girls Leading Our World? Yeah, so my like GLOW meeting was supposed to start on Thursday, and my first English class with the community was supposed to be on Monday. And lo and behold, Sunday night at like 10 p.m., we get the email that's like, and you're leaving. Get to Barranquilla as soon as you can. So got evacuated. That was terrible. It was like the biggest shit show that could have ever been. Like, it was very poorly planned. It was, like it's understanding. Colombia was set as a low priority because it has such good healthcare, but then it was closing its borders a lot faster than intended. Chris got stranded in Panama because his second flight got canceled and wasn't able to leave the airport to go purchase a ticket, and you were too close to the time to be able, like, you were too close to the takeoff time to be able to buy the ticket online. And the Panamanian police like literally came and were like, "Y nadie pase." Like, it was, he ended up getting on a plane that was evacuating Peace Corps Panama. Just like someone ended up being in like the Latino, like Latinx Peace Corps group chat, like worldwide group chat. And they were like, "Hey, we hear that there's some PCVs in from Colombia in Panama. If you can make it, we'll let you on." And so they did. So we got evacuated, and we waited for ages. We waited for a year and a half, almost 2 years to go back. So we would get told that we're going back in a month, then it didn't happen. We get told we're going back in 2 months, it didn't happen. So we essentially applied to grad school, and we were like, if grad school goes back before Peace Corps, then we'll do grad school. And if Peace Corps goes back before grad school, then we'll do peace, like vice versa. So my experience insight, how far are y'all into service?
So I think everyone that's on this call, minus Tom and Davey, are, yeah, they're a little bit short. So we're the rest of us, excluding Tom and Davey, are about a year into service. And then I'm not too sure how long Tom's been here.
10
Davey?
months.
Okay. And then
Gotcha.
I don't
So
know.
right under. So yeah, so I got evacuated after 6 months. So had just finished sort of my like trial in the initial site, and then, was just waiting to come back. So Chris and I actually went back in June of 2021 to see host families and spend time and see everyone. We've remained really close with our host families. I know that's obviously not the same for everyone. Everyone has different experiences, but I was very, very fortunate to have like 2 fantastic host families that I still talk to all the time. So I'm just gonna ramble unless I'm given a prompt.
I'm going to give you a prompt. You mentioned grad school.
Yeah.
Guys, talk about the scholarship. You got the Peace Corps scholarship, both of you.
Yes. So something that you guys will learn when you're like starting to apply to grad school, if that's what you want to do afterwards, is like the Peace Corps scholarships that show on the website are like not always exactly what the school is offering. So like, for example, A&M. A&M gives everyone who comes to the Bush School. I don't even have allegiance to that school, I'll be honest. I'm a dog. But anyways, but they give everyone in-state tuition. So it's like you are already, like, I think that the Coverdell scholarship is like, oh, you get the makeup between sort of out of state and in-state. Some will give you more. So Chris got his tuition paid for. I got my tuition paid for plus living expenses. And that was like technically under Coverdell, but the person who ran Coverdell at A&M at Bush, the Bush School is what it is, was very much just like, oh yeah, I tossed that on the website because it seemed cool. Like I wanted to attract Peace Corps volunteers. Like, you guys are a very hot commodity and you have stories that are very exciting. And especially like having spent so much time in country, Peace Corps on your resume just like automatically is something that people look at and are like, oh my God, a Peace Corps volunteer. Like, what did you do? What was that like? So that gets your foot in the door in a lot of places. Just having that on there. So grad school, so I'm sure you guys are familiar with NCE, non-competitive eligibility. You get that for It's a year after Peace Corps. But something that you guys should always do is you'll reach out to your sort of like country director, POC type deal. They send you a letter that's like, this person did Peace Corps, they're eligible for NCE. So even though we were evacuated and I only did 6 months in country, we were still eligible for NCE. So 2 years, 3 years after we had been evacuated, when Chris was applying to jobs, that's my husband, Chris, when he was applying to jobs in DC, a lot of those, make sure that you guys go, have you guys looked at like the Peace Corps employee link? Have you guys gone through sort of, do you guys check that? Are you familiar with it?
I know I have
Not
just for fun, just to check it out, see what's on there. I'm not sure if anyone else has. I bet probably a good amount of us have at least at some point.
okay. That is like your best friend. It truly is. Because a lot of times, because it gets posted on Peace Corps, they give a specific email to email about NCE considerations. So Chris, even though we were 3 years out of when we were PCVs, when he was graduating, he sent in his NCE letter and they were like, yep, this works. So just because you don't feel like you fall under that year long of NCE, let me click this of what you have. Just because you don't fall under that like exact year of NCE, there's also, yes, this is exactly what I'm talking about, which is fantastic. And so just because you don't fall under that 1 year, just try. Like it's not, it is both a matter of Peace Corps is complicated and people go to grad school afterwards. And while I have not heard any official guidance about this, it's my understanding that you can freeze your NCE eligibility until after you graduate from grad school, if you go to grad school right afterwards. The other side of that is that like most of the hiring managers that are these emails like don't understand the limitations of what PCV NCE looks like. And that's not to say like take advantage of the system, but just because you're going to grad school afterwards, or just because you have a career path that doesn't involve immediately going into USG after Peace Corps, doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to like reap the benefits of having been a PCV and spent that time there and having been eligible for NCE. So does that make sense? Anything else on that?
Yeah, no, that does. Thanks so much for sharing that. I'm sure I think some of us are, yeah, we're about to hit our one year mark, so we're in the process of kind of trying to figure out what's next, exploring those opportunities. So really any information is valuable, even from people who served a long time ago. I think that's still super, super valuable. Any experience or advice is always welcome, at least with us.
Yeah.
As love to anything. So
is anyone here interested? So Bill, did you talk about foreign service at all? Is anyone here interested in foreign
Hadn't gotten
service?
there yet. I just mentioned that was plan C after my first job fell apart. I didn't even say what.
Okay. Did I see hands raised for foreign service stuff? Okay. So essentially, I did an internship at the US Embassy in Botswana my like junior year of college. And from then I was like, oh, I definitely want to be an FSO. But being an FSO has got to be like your plan 12, like your plan Z. It's just, you can never count on it actually happening. And sometimes it comes through perfectly. If you're not familiar with a foreign service officer or an FSO, that's a diplomat. Like when you think about someone that works at an embassy, they're a diplomat. The key term for that is foreign service officer. Me necesita.
Well,
Eso son, sí, claro.
okay.
So, what are they saying? Okay, they're changing this whole thing up right now, which is a nightmare. So, but I always tell everyone the FSOT is the first step of that. So they've literally just changed this like last Thursday, they changed it. So it used to be that you took the FSOT, which is just like a little multiple choice trivia test that you can take online, you can take at the embassy, like you can do this stuff overseas. And then once you take the FSOT, you used to have to submit personal narratives, and you would, based off of those personal narratives, you would get invited to the oral assessment, which is like what the actual big score at the end of the day is. And if you passed that, so there's like 3 components of what that looks like. It's like a day of interviews. Then they give you a score and they put you on the list depending on what cone you want to be. So political, economic, consular, which is visas and American citizen services, management, which is like managing the whole operations of the embassy, and then public diplomacy, which is like Education USA. It's very focused on like the public affairs side of things. You do Fulbrights, you do, you know, that kind of stuff. So all in all, that process typically takes about 2.5 years. So Chris and I both started, I took the FSOT in like 2018. I took the FSOT when I was in college, just because it's $5 deposit to take it, and then they refund you the deposit. So it's free to take. Like, you might as well just do it. It takes 2 hours out of your day, and it's literally just like general trivia questions. And they've made it even easier now because you don't even need to submit personal narratives. They've completely eliminated that portion. It's just the FSOT and then the FSOA, the Foreign Service. It's now called the Officer Assessment. It used to be called the Oral Assessment. So Chris and I both took that during grad school. We both got on the register, we passed, and then Chris got the invitation last year, like a month before our wedding, to start the A100 process, which is the like training, full-on training for diplomats. So that's how we have ended up back in Colombia, is that Colombia was on our list, and here we are now. But so I know there were a lot of people in my cohort that were very interested in foreign service. There's also, apart from foreign service, there is the foreign agriculture service. So there is the foreign ag service that focuses a lot on, it's much more Peace Corps-y. It's much more individual projects. It's a lot more liaising. It's a lot more focused on community development. It's not just agriculture focused. There's also the foreign commercial service, which focuses on connecting U.S. businesses with businesses and or like manufacturing and markets in other countries. And then there's no longer USA. So, which is a huge bummer. So that's, that could always change, but keep in mind that there's foreign service officers, which are foreign service generalists. So you can be political, econ, public diplomacy, consular, or management. Chris is econ. I am on the list for public diplomacy. And then there's foreign service specialists, which are like RSOs, so regional security officers, office management specialists, doctors, diplomatic couriers, that kind of stuff. So those are like very interesting positions. They have just opened the FSOT up for this October. This is the first time they've offered it all year. They typically offer it 3 times a year. So take it. If you're interested in it, take it. It literally has absolutely no effect if you do well, if you do poorly. It's always good. Like, even though I'm on the register with anyways, I still keep continuously take it because I want to make sure that, because your candidacy will expire after, it used to be 18 months. They changed it in February to 30 months. I don't know if that will stay, but currently it's 30 months. Another thing that I will advocate for heavily that I had absolutely no idea existed when I was in Peace Corps are the national labs. So I'm sure you guys have probably heard of Los Alamos, like the Manhattan Project, the lab that built the bomb. That place still exists, and there are 18 national labs under Department of Energy. So that's where I work right now, is at Sandia National Labs, which is another one of the national labs under the Department of Energy. What I do is I work in counter-proliferation efforts. So I travel overseas and work with other governments and as well as their private sectors on making sure that we're not selling like microelectronics or critical components to Iran or North Korea or Russia. So I travel probably 4 to 8 times a year to, most of it's been in Southeast Asia at this point. Yata. Dame como 2 segunditos. Pero ni termine tu lulo. So the labs are great. They pay very well. They're a great spot to, and all of them pretty much have these like international facing programs that either are through Department of State. So they the labs will be contracted with Department of State, or it's through Department of Energy's National Nuclear Security Administration. So I had no interest in energy. I had no interest in nuclear things. I had no interest in non-pro. And then when I got to grad school, I had a friend who worked at the labs, and they were like, oh yeah, they pay $32 an hour. And I was like, as an intern, that's insane, And so started working there, really, really started liking the work, really enjoyed the amount that I got to travel and the amount that I got to like continue to kind of scratch that itch of like consistently working with different people and thinking about problem sets from like a different lens. And like most people don't know that the labs exist. So if you just look up like DOE national labs, they're all over the place. They're in Tennessee and Texas and New Mexico and Washington and Chicago. They're all over the place. And they're great places to sort of like land. And a lot of times they're looking for sort of like policy, programmatic, program management oriented people. So that was like kind of a hidden, I had no idea that those existed when I was in Peace Corps, and they've been fantastic.
Yeah, wow, that's a really great resource for sure. Because I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I can't say I really knew too much about it. I think I looked at, also thank you, Bella, for sending the links, very helpful. I checked out your LinkedIn before just to see kind of what you were doing currently, and I saw that, but yeah, I didn't really know too much about it, but it seems like a really great resource for volunteers.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you're I can't remember what word you used, but you're essentially kind of on like a wait list for foreign service officer.
Yes.
And so you mentioned it, yeah, they've changed like when it expires, so you've been retaking the FSOT just to kind of update that. So is that's like your, I guess at least for now, your end goal is did you mention diplomacy? Is that's what you're wanting?
Public diplomacy is the cone that I'm in. So yeah, so Chris and I, when we took the test, so there's certain cones that are more like, I don't want to say more competitive than others, but that like more people want to do. Like a lot of people want to be PAL officers because they think that's like the coolest thing in the world. And a lot of people want to do PD because like PD is like very shiny and pretty and fun, objectively. That's what I want to do. And so Chris and I both scored the same. So you need a 5.25 to pass, and typically the like highest score that people get is a 6. And so we both got 5.4s. We were both waiting on the list, and Chris was on econ, I was on public diplomacy. So he got the call in September of last year. So 5.4 was a high enough score for him to get pulled as an econ officer. It was not sufficient for me to get pulled as a public diplomacy officer. So I was retaking, and I retook it in February, and I got a 5.7. So that put me in the top third of the register. And they have always done it, once again, a year of unprecedented occurrences, you guys know this, is they've always pulled you based off of how high your score is. So you just wait until they get down to your score. And they just invited a class 2 weeks ago, and they completely said, screw the scores. So I was skipped over for people that had 5.3s that were lower than like both of my positions on the register. So you essentially just sit on this register until you get called off. That's why you have to just always have it be like a plan J, because you just never know. But yeah, so that's what I'm currently waiting on. I am going to contract with Sandia while I'm gone. I really, really love what I do. And so entering like a very question, like they fired foreign service officers that they hired in March. So like even a call right now is not necessarily like a guarantee, like that the administration hired in March, not that we're hired by previous administration. So it's like, that's what I'm saying. It never hurts to just go ahead and take the test. It never hurts to just jump in and do those things. Because what do you have to lose? Like 2 hours on a Sunday once a year is kind of so yeah, that's my hope, is that Chris and I would become what's called a tandem couple. But I am relatively content. I'm annoyed I got skipped over, I'll be honest. But like I'm relatively content in that like I really like the job that I'm working at. I'm actually like, I have started my own LLC to be a contractor for Sandia. So like it's like a known boss type thing, which is scary, but you know, there's lots that kind of goes along with that. But if you have any questions about the foreign service process, I've been taking that thing for 7 years. So like it has changed at least 4 times considerably since I've done it. So if you are interested in that career, like 100% would love to talk about it, but don't want to talk people's ear offs who are like, yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's great. I know there's some other people that are on this call that are very interested in that. So if you're okay, I'll definitely share like at least your LinkedIn.
Yeah. You can give them my phone number or I'll just put my phone number in the chat, but message me on WhatsApp. I assume all you are on WhatsApp anyways.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, but that's awesome. Thanks.
Give me 2 seconds. I got to finish up with these guys.
Of course, no worries. And so going back to you, Professor Weech, you were an FSO. So, and you mentioned it was in your plan C. So I think it's really interesting to kind of hear about Kaylee's experience and your son's experience, like dealing with, a very unexpected situation, having their service end and, having to change plans and, nothing's ever really set in stone. And that same thing kind of happened to you with this dream job that you had. And then all of a sudden, that kind of fell apart. So I think that's really interesting. There's some like similarities in some way, but I was wondering if you could share a little bit about your experience as well.
Sure. I think I'm going to flunk my homework assignment. I'm not going to answer all the
That's
questions you
fine.
sent
No
me. I'm
worries.
sorry,
Yeah,
but
they were just a guide to help.
yeah. Um,
No
Let me
worries.
say just a little bit about my Peace Corps service and a little bit about what happened afterwards, and then see what questions or comments you guys want to have. So I was in a program I don't think exists anymore, rural community development. And my host agency back then was something called IDA, el Instituto de Desarrollo Agrario. I think today it's called INDER, el Instituto de Desarrollo Rural. And back then, I don't know if they still do this, but their main program was land reform. So I was, peasants were squatting on land and then they were getting parcels from the government. So I was sent to a land reform colony that had just been established. There were about 50 campesino families, mostly illiterate. They all had 15 hectares of land. They had no electricity, no running water, next to nothing in terms of capital, and I was told to develop it. Awful for me. One of your questions is about, what you learned. I love structure. This is the least structured thing you could imagine. But while I was there, I did eventually get my feet on the ground. And while I was there, we had two big projects. The first one, you wouldn't be surprised, you guys, especially working in education, when I asked the settlers, where was my Altesa? Asked the settlers what they wanted. One of the top priorities was a schoolhouse. So we did, the first year I was there, we got a schoolhouse built, and partially supported by USAID. AID provided the materials, the municipalidad gave us a lot of secured, a lot of resources, and the settlers contributed the labor, and I organized. So where was the site? Yeah, that's an important detail. This was on the side of the Tenorio volcano. If you know where that is, it's north of Cañas. People who know Costa Rica as tourists, I used to tell them, because everybody knows about the Volcán Arenal, I'd say we were the next volcano to the west of that. So as the crow flies, not far from Arenal, but to get to Arenal, you'd have to go on the Pan American Highway, big U shape. Anyhow, side of the Tenorio. The government called it El Asentamiento Corobici because the Corobici River went through there. The settlers, I don't know why, called it Parcelas de Nueva Guatemala. So yeah, first year we got the schoolhouse built. That was a big deal. The second year, another priority for them was they wanted health services. We started working on a puesto de salud, and they actually finished it after I left, but they built a puesto de salud, and then they got visits from the Ministerio de Salud once a month for health services. So that was my volunteer service. Another maybe relevant detail. When I applied to Peace Corps, I had no technical skills, no background, I had nothing to offer whatsoever. But I had been a high school exchange student in Costa Rica for a year in San Jose. So I had my bachillerato from the Liceo Brenes Mesen in Atillo, and outside of San Jose. So when Peace Corps, I had another job offer. I called Peace Corps, said, hey, I really want to do Peace Corps. What do you have to offer? And they said, well, the only thing we have for you right now is in Costa Rica. Would you mind going back to a place you've already been to? I said, are you nuts? My bags are packed. But I think if I had any success at all as a community organizer, it was because I already had a good foundation in the language and the culture. It wasn't new to me. I'd been there before. At that point, I'd spent about a year and a half in Costa Rica before I was there as a volunteer. So that gave me a leg up. All right, so I mentioned the dream job with the Costa Rica focus fell apart. I was engaged at the time. I planned to join my wife in Cleveland because she had a good job and she was happy. And then this is one of these random things. I had taken the Foreign Service exam in grad school, kind of as a lark. I didn't really want to be part of the establishment. I was a hippie, and the State Department was establishment. I didn't really want to do that. So, but I resigned from my job in the consulting office on Monday. Thursday, the State Department calls me up and says, how'd you like to join the Foreign Service? So I call my fiance and I say, hey, you're not going to believe this. I got a job offer. She said, who? I said, State Department. She said, you're going to take it? I said, of course not. We already figured it out. I'm going to go to Cleveland. She said, oh, what the heck? Let's do it. So I blame her. So I joined the Foreign Service. I was a management guy, so I was involved in embassy operations. It wasn't, it's really important work, really necessary. It wasn't rewarding to me. So I had it in mind I'd be in the Foreign Service for a couple of years and I'd check out. I kind of followed that plan, but not exactly. I did stop being a Foreign Service officer, but I really enjoyed working. I got myself assigned to the training center, the Foreign Service Institute, and I did training programs. Actually, most of my career was management development and executive coaching and organizational development, just working with people who were doing international work. I actually enjoyed that. Legacies of my Peace Corps service, like I said, the language and the culture. Now I'm semi-retired. I do a lot of volunteer activities. I don't want to be too political here, but volunteer activities trying to support refugees and immigrants here where I am in the Shenandoah Valley. Once a week right now, I'm a volunteer interpreter. I provide medical interpreting services at a free clinic. So that's kind of a um, lasting legacy of my Peace Corps service. Let me shut up there, see what questions you have or comments, or if I could say something useful. Speechless. You're all well anesthetized.
I'm the only one who ever speaks up. Everybody else is quiet. So Bill, I'm glad that Eden put you onto us. How do you feel about one of your former students joining the Peace Corps and actually going to Costa Rica? That must make you feel good that you made a difference in Eden's life.
I think Eden was destined for success way before she met me. But you've caught the story here. What's also interesting to me is that my son, in spite of me trying to talk him out of it, joined the Peace Corps and then joined the Foreign Service. He's kind of following in my footsteps. So I don't know how that happened. Okay, another question. This might be interesting. Or one of the questions that you asked me was, have I been back to Costa Rica? About 20 years after I left my site. But I'm getting emotional just thinking about this. I went back with my family. My kids were little. And this is pre-internet, pre-cell phone, and they didn't have electricity or anything, so I couldn't tell them. I just showed up. And my kids were saying, Dad, are they even going to remember you? It's been 20 years. The reception I got was just so, that was probably the most memorable part of my experience was going back 20 years later. So now in the internet age, I am in on my bucket list is going back again. I have not been back for almost 20 years now. My bucket list is going back one more time. But now, of course, with the internet, with cell phones, I'm actually Facebook friends with not so much the people that I worked with in the settlement, but their kids. The next generation is taking over. And so some of them, I have some information about what's going on. One of your questions was, how has Costa Rica changed? Oh my goodness. You're in a totally different country. When I first went to Costa Rica in 76, it was an agricultural country. That was the economy. Their big business was selling beef to the United States, and coffee and bananas, I guess, were up there as well. But it was an agricultural country. When I went back 20 years ago, they'd already made the transformation to being a tourist economy. English was everywhere. I couldn't believe it. Dollars were everywhere. I couldn't believe it. Restaurants and cafes and things that catered to tourists. Ecotourism was huge. That has all happened in the last, 40, 50 years. That was not the Costa Rica that I knew initially. The settlement has also developed. I think the biggest change there was they did get electricity. I'm not sure how or why, but ISE ran electric lines along the south side of the Tenorio. anyhow, so they're and of course that meant they had refrigerators. That meant they had all kinds of things they didn't have when I was there. But yes, I would say do, and like Chris and Kaylee, they went back to Colombia. Plan on going back to Costa Rica. Bella.
Hi. No, thank you so much for all this insight. I have a question about how you became a professor and how you like entered the academia world, and any advice you have for people that are interested in that field.
I'm not a career academic. This was kind of like a retirement thing. But because I was working in executive development in middle age, I went back to school. I got a doctorate. It was kind of ironic because at one point I dropped out of college. But yeah, I got the doctorate. Um, how I got my first kind of academic position after retiring was knowing somebody. It was networking. They suddenly needed somebody who could do international management, and somebody knew me and said, "Hey, would you be willing to do that?" And I said, "Actually, yeah. Now that I'm retired, I want to do something like that." Academia, I don't know what field you're interested in. I would say do a lot, if you haven't done it already, informational interviews with people who are already in academia. It's a shrinking field right now because of demographic changes and cultural changes. So it's getting hard. I wouldn't want to discourage you. If you're excited about it, go for it.
That
But
yeah,
go
I'm not
for it with your
personally interested,
eyes,
but
go for it
like
with
maybe
your
in the
eyes
future.
open, talk to people, talk to professors who are currently doing the kind of thing you think you want to do. And because it's going to be a challenging career in the future.
Yeah, no. Personally, I'm looking into doing an MBA and kind of going into what Kylie does, more of
Hmm.
like I think Eden mentioned social responsibility, corporate social responsibility. That's kind of like my field of interest. But I don't know, being the university kind of ecosystem is very interesting, and I'd love to to hear more about that, like in the future. Yeah.
Well, I've chosen to retire in a college town because I love being in a college town. So it's a great place to live.
So, Bill, I have another question. There's a guy at my site who was there was a guy who was at my site in the back in the 70s. Okay, when were you in Costa Rica?
I was a volunteer from 83 to 85.
Okay.
76 was when I was an exchange student.
Okay. So anyway, he was a volunteer back in the 70s. People in this town still know him. They asked me, "Do you know this guy named Jay Voss?" I mean, he was a Peace Corps volunteer. I go, "No, he was way before my time." But the fact is, back to your story about 20 years later, right? So this guy paved the way for me and my site because some of the older people now, they're in their 70s probably. They still remember him and they're friends with him. They ask me about him. So we've been connecting on WhatsApp. So I find that's like, he's giving me some advice about the town. And so I find that's a really great story. You know what I
Wow.
mean? I love it. And then my second question is, I don't think I'm ever going to retire. I don't ever want to retire. That's why I joined the Peace Corps. So for a guy like me, over 55, um, what opportunities would there be for me after my service? What would you do if you were want to hang around and travel internationally? Any thoughts on that?
There are lots of international service programs. In fact, I'm doing a medical mission in January. We're going to El Salvador. My partner is actually a retired physician who speaks Spanish, and so they're loving the fact that this Spanish-speaking doctor is willing to go to Salvador. They're going to let me tag along as an interpreter because again, been doing medical interpreting. But I think for international volunteer service, if you Google it, all kinds of things will pop up. I actually got offered a position. Now, this might be more of an academic thing. I got offered a thing that I ultimately turned down to help Kosovo set up a new diplomatic academy. I had done foreign service in Albania, so I had the Albanian, and of course I had the foreign service training background. There were a lot of reasons why I decided that the design of the project was just set up to fail, and I turned it down. But there are lots of opportunities out there. Now, the other thing I would say is that I'm doing all kinds of international work right here in the Shenandoah Valley. You don't have to travel to do the cross-cultural international stuff. I happen to be in a place that's a refugee resettlement center, and there's just a lot going on here. But there are a lot of ways to scratch that itch.
Hey, Bill. So you said that like one of the lasting impacts that your service had on you was specifically focused on the culture and the language. So I was wondering, through your career or just personally, how you felt like you maintained that connection with the culture, with the language, because the career I'm interested in going to, I won't necessarily directly use Spanish or Costa Rican culture, but it's something that I would be interested in maintaining and maybe just doing in personal things outside of my career, or who knows, maybe it'll lead to that in the future. But like, how did you maintain that, and how did you see that continue to develop? Because now you're
That's a great question because it really was up and down at different points in my life. I did 3 foreign service assignments, and one of them was in Guadalajara, Mexico. So, I mean, that gave me another chance to practice my Spanish. There was certainly, and then when I stopped being a diplomat, but I was working at the Institute, I still got a chance to travel. But there was a period in maybe midlife where definitely my language skills deteriorated. And actually, 2 of the 3 languages I had are gone. I only have courtesy words left, but Spanish I could still hold my own in. One of the things that helped, and I hope Kaylee's not listening.
I am.
Ah, was being a
I'm back.
parent
Ya
and
se
the fact
fueron.
that my wife also my late wife, also Chris's mom spoke Spanish. So we didn't want the kids to understand us. We'd talk to each other in Spanish. That helped. Yeah, no, it's a great question. I have done different volunteer activities that use my Spanish, and that when I'm looking for volunteer activities, I'm usually looking for things that use my international background. Yeah, depending on what you're doing, sometimes you have to make an intentional effort. And in midlife when I had kids, I didn't always make time for it.
Thank you.
I feel like I also just really relate to that question that Nick asked. Kind of thinking about right now, I don't really have like a set direction or a goal for after service, like what I want to do, working on that. But that's also something that's always in the back of my mind. Like I don't want to lose the language, but also, yeah, like that connection that, you create living and working in a different country for 2 years. So, and also just like because I remember from your class you mentioning like the different like activities you do in Harrisonburg specifically. There's such a large immigrant community, and there's so many opportunities to be engaged with that community and help and use those skills that you have. I feel like it comes down to where you end up, I guess. If you're in the US, nothing's really uniform there. But I think, yeah, you definitely would have to be more intentional, especially when you get back and maybe you're trying to do grad school or this or that. But I thought it was really cool to see, even on your LinkedIn, even though I already kind of knew about this, like how you are spending your time and how it kind of reflects in a way, not exactly what you did as a Peace Corps volunteer, like literally with the program and the work you did, but how still like all these years later you're doing things that kind of match up to what being a volunteer is and serving a community in the ways that you can. I just wanted to say that I think that that's very, very cool, really admirable, and it's something that I would love to like also be able to do wherever I end up. So
Let me share an observation and see if Kaylee agrees with this. I basically spent all of my adult life working with people who work internationally and visiting various expatriate communities. You can tell who's an RPCV. It's so easy when you're doing international work to fall into that golden ghetto, the expatriate community, and kind of get locked into hanging out with the other expatriates because that's where you're comfortable and that's where it's easy to be. But people who are RPCVs, yeah, they generally plug into that community, but they also reach out and they have local friends. It's actually kind of discouraging how many American diplomats I've seen don't have any local friends. If they're RPCVs, almost certainly they make connections in the community. They're still plugged into the expat community generally. I'm obviously making generalizations, but they also reach out and have those local connections. It's really striking. I don't know, Kaylee, if you've because you've also traveled quite a bit and been a lot of places. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Ones
No, I think
the ones who stay in the Golden Ghetto and with the expats and the ones who can reach out.
yeah. Well, and I think that's been an like kind of a struggle for Chris being in the diplomat role, is that there's like very much a divide between uh LE staff, locally employed staff, and then regular like diplomats. And so it's difficult to, when you've been your whole life like at the hospitality and kindness of like host country nationals, and then you're put into a position where there's like this big divide. I think it makes it difficult. There was one of the guys that I worked with at the embassy in Botswana was a former PCV from the DR, and him and I were talking about it because he knew that I wanted to do Peace Corps, and I was talking about sort of the jump between Peace Corps to foreign service, and he was just like, you'll always be missing something though. He's like, it will never feel the same. Like Peace Corps is the closest that he will ever get to like truly feeling like adopted into another community and knowing that other community and like feeling truly, encapsulated and immersed. And there's places that you can get close at, but I think that's the like really, you know, that's the really special thing about Peace Corps, is that you really do get a chance to experience another place in a completely different way. And when you have that experience, you like seek it out always in other places. And when you haven't had that experience, you don't know what you're missing out on. So you're just kind of like, I'll stick with the people that I know.
Yeah, well, but my baby boy Chris, I'm going to brag on him for a second here. Even though he's some kind of highfalutin consular officer at the embassy, he plays soccer with Colombians.
Yeah, he
And
does. He's done a really good job.
Yeah. So my sense is he's got local contacts as well.
Yeah, but it is one of those things like where you get that feeling of like, oh yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing. Like I took so when we got married last October, and my family, who has never really traveled outside of the US, I took them to my Peace Corps site, and they were like, Chris's dad did Peace Corps. My family has traveled to England. And so imagine like putting them on a 4-hour bus ride that you have to wait to fill up until everyone gets there. And then I'm sure you guys have similar, like you have chickens getting on board and fruit carts, and you have, people walking up and down like it's a completely different. And once you know that, you're like, oh yeah, I'm totally comfortable with it. It's normal. And all that. So yeah, you're definitely enjoy it while you're there. I know that once you hit that like year mark, it can be pretty stressful to be like, what am I doing next? And I had really no idea. Like I knew that I wanted to do foreign service, but I knew that foreign service was such a, shot in the dark that there was no way that that's what I was going to get afterwards. So like when you come back, I think at least, and I, in my mind, I was like, oh, I settled for a job with Sandia, which is where I'm at right now, that I wasn't like particularly really excited about, and then grew into really, really enjoying it. And so don't discount when you come back. If you find something that you're like, this is, tenable for a certain amount of time, like you never know how you're actually going to feel about it. And we don't know what the options are when y'all get back. Honestly, it's like not a bad thing that y'all are doing Peace Corps right now, because it's not like there's the like wealth of international development jobs that there used to be are now no longer. So it's like figuring out kind of what the next year looks like is not a bad. Are any of y'all thinking about extending? Are any of y'all thinking about being PCBLs? I did my master's in international affairs.
It's an idea.
Anyone thinking about doing PCBL?
About extending like a third year. I'm not sure what PCVL technically.
Ours was a Peace Corps volunteer leader, so that's who extended. Like you extended, and you would either go help open up a new site, or you were like just in charge of making volunteers.
I know that some of the people in Costa Rica here that have extended third year are like response volunteers. Well, one of them. So, and he's extending, I think, again. So he works in San Jose with Dina Deco, like in government. And then I think there's his name is Rob, I think. And he went to El Salvador to help them reopen their post that just opened up. But yeah, I wasn't sure, or I'm not too familiar with. Oh, Ben, yeah. That's who I was mentioning, Ben and Dina Deco, right? That's who. Yes, thank you, Bella. Yeah, yeah. So I think we have like
a couple.
Yeah, I think my cohort's about to have our mid-service training in October, so I think we'll probably learn a lot more about those things, or those what the options are really. But I mean, I'm trying to, yeah, I'm investigating all the opportunities right now for me at least. I'm not sure about anyone else. If anyone else has been I think maybe Gary. I think maybe Gary was debating, right? About maybe extending. You're on mute, Gary.
I might either extend or maybe do response, possibly,
Yeah.
or something.
I
I don't want to
know
go back to
we're
the States anytime soon.
yeah. I know we're wrapping up, but Kaylee, you got a question in the chat about what you and Chris did for your master's program?
International affairs. So we both did, so like most people will do MPAs, Masters in Public Administration, Masters in International Policy, Masters in International Affairs. Chris focused on, there were like 2 tracks at Texas A&M. Chris did the International Development and Economic Policy, and I did the National Security and Diplomacy. So
My program was
we didn't do all the
intercultural
same
management. I'm sorry. Intercultural management doesn't exist anymore, that particular program.
But yeah, are y'all thinking about doing your master's after this? Is that kind of like the plan? Or did most of y'all come straight out of undergrad? I also came straight out of undergrad. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, at least for me, it's also another thing that I'm looking into right now. I think Bella also right now. I think
What was it? Say that again, what you're looking into?
my master's after as well. I think I've been investigating a lot more about like some international development programs. But just trying to learn as much as I can, trying to figure out what, would be the best path forward, or yeah, what opportunities kind of like pique my interest the most.
Yeah. And I would say on those, just, and I'm sure you guys are like well versed on all of what that looks like, but just keep in mind, like a lot of times people will come in and they're like, oh, I want to go to Columbia, or I want to go to Johns Hopkins, or I want to go to, Georgetown or GW or whatnot. And like, don't get me wrong, like those are great programs, but they're going to put you in a lot of debt. Like even the like covered all scholarships that come over them, like aren't particularly, they're not as comprehensive as you'd like them to be. And of course they're more competitive. And that doesn't mean that you're not competitive and you couldn't get it and all that goes along with that. Like one of my good friends got the covered L at NYU, but in my mind, like Chris is a foreign service officer and he went to Texas A&M and we have no debt because of it. Like don't like totally focus on sort of like the name side of it, because there are certainly like big pros to being also outside of the DC area. You've got professors that are like super invested in students, as opposed to having like this is their kind of nighttime job. But yeah, like look at that. I would just keep that in mind too, that there's really good programs out there that aren't going to cost you like $90,000 a year.
Yeah.
And also I have opinions on Georgetown's foreign service masters. So like if any one of you are thinking about that, please come talk to me.
Yeah. All right. I don't know if anyone has any other questions they wanted to ask. We can wrap it up. If not, I'll end with the question. So it's pretty cliche, but if you had one piece of advice to current volunteers about making the most of their service, what would it be? For both of you guys.
Yeah, I can go first because she sent me this one in advance. I kind of want to take a pass because, but I won't entirely. What's the advice? I mean, my background as an executive coach, you don't tell people what to do. You help them figure out what they want to do. So what's right for you is what's right for you. I can't tell you. But I guess the one generic piece of advice that applies to everybody, one of the things that I think I've concluded about life is all about relationships. And my Peace Corps service was all about relationships. That's what matters. So I think Gary's story about, what was his name? Jay Voss, validates, it's all about those relationships. And I was so touched. All right, I'll shut up in just a second. I had a chance to go to Chris's Peace Corps site when he went back. He and I went back afterwards. I was just so touched by the relationships, even though they got medevaced or got evacuated with the pandemic. They weren't there for that long, and yet he had ties in the community. It's all about the people and the relationships. Over to you, Kaylee.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like always which is because it's true. It's what everyone says. Like, make sure we had like 80 Colombians at our wedding that came from Atlántico, which is like a totally different province, to come to Cartagena for the full wedding. And that was all because of just like time spent sitting on porches. Like, I think that's some of the most valuable time. And if you feel like you're not, I mean, you guys did longer service than I do, so who am I to say anything about it? But I think one of the coolest things that came out of the evacuation was the GLOW program in Colombia was incredibly strong. And you know, the whole question around international development is you want it to continue when Americans aren't there anymore. Like when you're finished, you want it to have like made an impact. And it was so clear based off of like everyone got evacuated and GLOW continued. Like GLOW continued via the local counterparts in Colombia for the entire 2 years that it took for PC Colombia to come back, which I think just like is a testament to how good, like, of course, personal relationships are super important, but if you're looking to have like your version of an impactful service, like really, really building up your counterpart, whether that's your teacher or just like a local community counterpart or, you know, whatever your sort of outside mission is, like can really, really reap its benefits after you leave. And that was like one of the only plus sides of getting evacuated, was seeing like how well some of the programs that were started continued on after like there was not a single PCV in country. So, but yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your days, your busy days, I'm sure, to come talk to us for a bit. We'll share the recording with other people in Peace Corps Costa Rica as well. Hopefully they can get a chance to watch this. I feel like there's so much really, really useful information in general, and just yeah, thank you guys so much again. I'll share your information, like your emails and your LinkedIn's as well. So if people have questions about foreign service or really anything in general, they can reach out to you guys as well.
Thank you guys for your service.
Yeah, you're killing it.
Yeah.
Get past the mid-year slump. You're gonna do great.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.